Good evening, you overworked human, and welcome back to a corner of the world that doesn't demand a performance. Tonight, you get water that doesn't argue, moonlight that doesn't judge, and sweetness that doesn't come with a guilt receipt. Your mind tries to sprint into tomorrow, so you gently trip it on purpose and keep everything in the present tense. You stand at the edge of a Lemurian lagoon, where stilt huts hover above dark glass and palm trees lean in like they're guarding a secret. And yes, you probably won't survive this, meaning your anxious to-do list is about to get flattened by tranquility. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and let me know how your day has really been. Your worries, your exhaustion, or even a tiny joy that made you smile. I'm here to truly listen and offer the most sincere, heartfelt advice I can. Now, turn off the lights. Take a deep, slow breath, let your tiredness melt away, and gently close your eyes. Let's drift together into tonight's dreamlike lands. And tomorrow morning, if you still remember, send me a message and tell me what you dreamed. You step onto a narrow plankway that reaches out over the lagoon, and it gives a small, friendly flex beneath your weight. Not danger, just proof that the world is allowed to move. Beneath you, the water holds the sky in a softened mirror, broken by tiny rings where something small touches the surface and disappears again. Your first breath tastes like salt and warm wood, and your shoulders, almost without permission, lower. The nearest hut stands with quiet confidence, a modest rectangle lifted above the tide on smooth posts. Its roof is woven palm, layered like careful handwriting. Along the eaves, shell gold accents catch stray light and return it in a gentler form. A brass oil lamp hangs near the doorway, flame steady and patient, as if calm is a daily practice here. The colors behave, too. Indigo deep in the shadows, russet warming the rails, turmeric yellow in small touches like kindness, and teal green pooling where lantern light meets water. You walk on, slow enough that your thoughts stop overtaking you. The boards under your feet are cool and textured, and each soft creak lands once and then fades, swallowed by the lagoon's larger hush. Ahead, the plankway threads between clusters of huts like a ribbon laid across water. To one side, the lagoon opens wide, the far shoreline a band of palms and mist, blurred like the edge of a dream. To the other side, huts form a small neighborhood, connected by short bridges that look carefully repaired. A small boat drifts past without urgency. Near the bow sits a woven reed basket, sturdy and slightly frayed at the rim from real work. You imagine it filled with coconuts, or leaf-wrapped sweets, or simple tools, nothing fancy, just useful. The boat's wake barely wrinkles the surface, and the lagoon smooths itself again, like it refuses to hold a grudge against motion. You reach a wider platform where the plankway pauses, offering space to stop without feeling in the way. You look down. The lagoon is shallow enough to hint at pale sand and darker patches where seagrass sways. A fish turns and flashes silver, then vanishes into teal depth like a thought that chooses not to bother you. Above, the stars feel closer than usual, and their reflections tremble on the water as if the sky is breathing with you. You let the place introduce itself properly. The air is warm but not sticky, the kind of warmth that feels like a blanket someone remembered to preheat. The scent of coconut drifts in, faint smoke from a wick, toasted sweetness from somewhere nearby, promising comfort without hurrying you. A palm frond taps lightly against a post. Tap, pause, tap, like a metronome set to slow down. Farther off, a single bird note rings out and then stops, as if even the wildlife has agreed to keep things low volume tonight. Your mind tries once to reach for the usual hooks. What time it is, what you forgot, what might go wrong. But the lagoon doesn't offer traction. The worries slide off the evening like rain off a waxy leaf. You feel something settle in your chest. Simple relief. Safe enough to notice details. The grain of wood beneath your fingers when you rest a hand on the rail. The beads of moisture on rope. The way lantern glow turns the posts into warm russet columns and leaves the water cool and indigo below. You take a few more steps, following the curve of the plankway deeper into the stilt hut world. The silence is not empty. It is full of small, gentle things doing their jobs. Water moving, air moving, light moving, you moving, finally, without forcing it. The lagoon hush gathers around you, soft and salted, like hands that know how to hold without squeezing. Somewhere out on the water, just beyond the reach of your certainty, the surface makes a slow, rounded swirl. Something larger rising and sinking again with zero interest in your stress. You don't name it yet. You simply accept that Lemuria keeps its own time, and that you are allowed, for once, to borrow it. The lanterns ahead glow a little brighter, and the coconut scent turns sweeter, as if the night is quietly preparing a welcome you don't have to earn. For now, you let the first calm settle fully into your bones, and you continue forward, unhurried, arriving without rushing. You keep walking, and the lagoon does something kind. It meets you at the pace you're finally willing to move. The plankway narrows again, then widens, then narrows like a gentle breathing pattern. Each stilt hut has its own little personality without ever trying too hard. Some have rails painted in deep indigo that look almost black until lantern light slides across them. Some lean warmer russet posts, turmeric yellow woven mats, teal green shutters that catch the night breeze and make a soft, papery sigh. You notice the architecture repeats in a comforting way. The same roof pitch, the same woven palm panels, the same careful shell gold accents that catch light and let it go again. It's like the whole lagoon community agreed long ago that consistency is soothing, and chaos can be left for places that think stress is a hobby. The walkway turns toward a cluster of huts that sit closer together, their connecting bridges short and slightly arched. Here, the stilt posts are thicker, the wood older, darker from salt and time. The tide slips between them, and you can see how the water has polished the lower beams smooth. This is not an untouched paradise. It's a lived-in one. You can feel it in the neat repairs. A plank replaced with a newer board, its grain lighter than the rest. A rope tied with a knot that's been tightened and retightened until it's perfect. You slow down because your eyes keep getting caught on small details that feel like lessons. A line of dried palm fronds hangs along one wall, neatly bundled, waiting to be woven. A set of shells sits in a shallow dish, possibly decoration, possibly a practical stash for mending something. Near a doorway, a brass oil lamp hangs on a hook, flame steady. Beside it, a small reed basket rests on the floorboards, the same style you saw on the boat. This place has a visual vocabulary, and you're learning to read it without needing subtitles. You pass a hut with a little porch that extends over the water. On it sits a low table, and on the table a wide bowl of coconut husk fibers, pale and soft-looking, as if someone was combing sunlight into threads. Nearby is a smooth wooden paddle and a coil of rope. The whole scene says, there are tasks here, but they aren't frantic. They happen in daylight, in moonlight, in whatever light is available, because life keeps moving and the lagoon keeps holding it. Your footsteps become quieter as you adjust your weight. The boards respond with a softer creak, almost approving. Beneath you, the water makes tiny sloshing sounds against the posts, a whispery rhythm. The air, still warm, now carries more scent. Coconut sweetness with a hint of smoke and something floral. Maybe a blossom dropped into a bowl somewhere. It's the kind of smell that makes you think of kitchens, hands, and patient stirring. As you move deeper into the community, you begin to sense the locals without needing to see them up close. You catch a shadow passing behind a woven screen. You see a lantern brighten briefly, then dim, as if someone trimmed the wick. You hear the soft thump of something being set down, wood on wood, followed by the gentle scrape of a basket being nudged aside. No one announces themselves. No one startles you. It's simply a place that assumes you belong here as long as you behave like a quiet guest. You come to a small junction where 3 plankways meet, each leading to a different cluster of huts. At the center is a slightly wider platform with a low bench built into the railing. You sit for a moment because the lagoon is basically daring you to stop pretending you're in a rush. When you settle, you feel the faint vibration of movement in the structure, the tide lifting, lowering, lifting again. The huts aren't rigid, they're responsive. They float on posts, held steady but allowed to sway in small ways that make them feel alive. You rest your hands on the rail and look outward. The lagoon opens into a broader stretch, where the water is darker and smoother, reflecting a smear of starlight. The far shore is lined with palms, their crowns moving lazily. In the distance, a faint glow marks another platform, another cluster, another pocket of life. You imagine this place in daylight, turmeric yellow sunlight on teal shutters, indigo shadows under the eaves, russet wood warming as it dries. But the night is doing a better job for your current condition. It simplifies, softens, edits out excess. A breeze slides through, and with it comes the faintest sound that isn't wind or water. A low, musical hum, so subtle you question if it's your tired brain trying to invent comfort. It rises and falls, like a distant chorus humming to itself. Not words, not a song you can identify, just tone. Something that belongs to this lagoon the way salt belongs to the air. You stand again and continue. As you pass another hut, you notice a set of small, carved wooden steps leading down into the water. The steps are slick with moisture, darkened by the tide. They look like a place people used to wash, to cool off, to reach into the lagoon for something. The idea of reaching into the water doesn't feel scary here. The lagoon has a calm authority, like it has rules, but they're fair rules. A faint glimmer moves near the surface, something rounded and slow. A shape rises just enough to catch lantern light and then sinks again, leaving a spreading ring that travels toward the posts and dissolves. You remember the swirl from earlier and realize it wasn't a trick of the eye. Something large does live here, and somehow that fact makes you feel safer, not less. Like the lagoon has guardians that don't need your attention, and you don't need to manage them. You cross a bridge to a slightly higher platform, where the boards are newer and the rails smoother. A reed basket sits in the corner, and beside it, a small bundle wrapped in palm leaves. The bundle gives off a warm sweetness that makes your mouth water a little. Coconut. Definitely coconut. The smell follows you like a polite invitation. The huts ahead glow with a gentler light, and the hum in the distance becomes clearer. Not louder, just more defined, as if you've walked into the right acoustic pocket. You feel it in your chest more than your ears. The lagoon, the huts, the lanterns, the repeating motifs. Everything is guiding you deeper, not into danger, but into a slower version of yourself. And you realize with a quiet kind of awe that these huts really do float like thoughts, anchored, supported, and yet free to drift in tiny ways. The whole place is a reminder that stability doesn't have to be rigid. You can be held and still move. You can be tired and still be safe. So you keep going, following the sweet scent and the soft hum, letting the plankway carry you farther into Lemuria's calm. The coconut scent grows more confident, the way a warm kitchen smell reaches out and gently grabs you by the sleeve. You follow it along a side plankway that angles toward a hut with wider windows and a porch that looks like it has seen 1,000 quiet evenings. The lantern light here leans turmeric yellow, and it spills onto the water in a soft ribbon. You step closer and notice the tiny practical details. A shallow tray set near the doorway to catch sand and salt from feet. A loop of rope hung in an orderly coil. A reed basket tucked under the bench like it belongs there the way your pillow belongs on your bed. Inside, the air is warmer, not stifling, just the kind of warmth you get when something has been simmering for a while and the whole space has absorbed that patient heat. You don't hear voices because this world doesn't do dialogue tonight. But you do sense presence, calm and welcoming, like someone has opened the door and simply assumed you would come in when you were ready. You step over the threshold and let your eyes adjust. The hut's interior is simple and beautiful. Woven mats in teal and russet, a low table near the center, and shelves lined with jars and bowls. A brass oil lamp hangs from a beam, shell gold glinting at the edges where the light catches. In one corner sits a wide wooden mortar and pestle, worn smooth from use. The room smells like toasted coconut, palm sugar, and a faint smoky note that hints at a hearth or a charcoal brazier used gently, never aggressively. On the low table sits a mound of grated coconut, white, fluffy, and slightly damp, like fresh snow that somehow tastes good. Beside it is a bowl of thick coconut milk, glossy and pale. There are small blocks of dark palm sugar, and a pinch bowl of salt that looks ceremonial even though it's just salt. You're not given instructions in words. Instead, you're guided by the quiet logic of what's placed where, the way a well-organized workspace tells you what to do. You take in the rhythm happening around you. Hands move slowly, confidently. Coconut is squeezed in cloth, milk collected in a bowl. Sugar is shaved with a small knife and dropped into a pot. A spoon stirs, 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 not frantically, but steadily, as if patience is the main ingredient. You feel your own breathing start to match it. Inhale, exhale, stir. Inhale, exhale. You are offered a task without being told you're being tested. A reed basket is slid closer, filled with coconuts, round, heavy, with husks that smell green and earthy. You pick one up and feel the weight of it, the simple honesty of a thing that grew slowly and is now ready to become comfort. You brace it against the edge of the table and begin to work with a small grater fixed to a board. The coconut scrapes into soft strands, gathering into a fluffy pile. The sound is soothing scratch, 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 like the world's gentlest sandpaper smoothing your edges. You notice that everything in this place respects time. Coconut is not rushed. Sugar is not blasted with high heat. Even the lamp flame is kept modest, steady. You think about your own life, the way you often try to force things faster. Faster answers, faster results, faster healing, faster sleep. Here, sweetness comes from slow reduction, from giving liquid time to thicken, from letting air and heat and stirring turn raw ingredients into something that holds its shape. A pot sits over low heat, and inside it the coconut milk and palm sugar begin to meld. The mixture darkens from pale cream to warm caramel, taking on a russet hue that matches the wooden posts outside. It bubbles gently, tiny blips that rise and pop like the lagoon's surface rings. A pinch of salt is added, not enough to make it salty, just enough to make the sweetness feel rounder, more awake. You watch the spoon drag through the thickening liquid, leaving a brief trail before the mixture flows back into itself. You keep grating, and your arms settle into the motion. Your mind, which usually tries to multitask itself into ruin, becomes single-tasked in the best way. There is coconut. There is the rhythm of your hands. There is the smell of sugar warming. The rest can wait. A shallow tray is set nearby, lined with a thin layer of oil or banana leaf to prevent sticking. The thickened coconut mixture is poured out in a slow, glossy stream. It spreads, steaming faintly, and the air becomes even sweeter. The surface shines under lantern light, and you find yourself leaning in, hypnotized by the way it slowly levels out, like a calm ocean choosing to be flat. Then comes the folding. Grated coconut is sprinkled in and stirred through, turning the glossy caramel into a textured, pale gold mass. It thickens further, becoming something that can be shaped. Hands lifted gently, fold it, press it, fold it again. The motion is slow and careful, like tucking in a blanket. You are given a small portion to work with. It's warm, not hot, pliable like soft clay. You roll it between your palms into a small ball, then press it into a simple shape, maybe a little square, maybe a rounded disc. The sweet is glossy at first, then dulls as it cools. You dust it lightly with more grated coconut so it won't stick to its neighbors. The texture becomes inviting. Soft outside, dense inside, promising chew and comfort. You set your finished piece on the tray and look at it like it's more significant than it should be. It's just a coconut sweet made of simple things. And yet it feels like proof that you can make something calm with your own hands, something that doesn't require panic to be good. A platter appears on the low table, already holding neat rows of finished sweets, little golden shapes dusted white, like tiny moons. The reed basket is brought closer, and the sweets are arranged inside with care, nestled in palm leaves to keep them from bruising. The basket looks like something that will travel across the lagoon, shared from hut to hut, offered without ceremony because kindness doesn't always need a grand entrance. You are given one to taste, not through dialogue, but through the simple act of the sweet being placed near your hand. You pick it up. It's cool enough now, slightly sticky, dusted with coconut. You take a bite. The flavor is immediate and gentle. Sweetness, yes, but not sharp. Coconut richness, creamy and toasted. A hint of salt that makes everything deeper. Tastes like warmth and patience. It tastes like someone cared enough to stir slowly. And in that moment, you realize something quietly ridiculous. You came here exhausted, and the lagoon didn't offer you a motivational speech. It offered you a coconut sweet and a rhythm. It offered you a place where your nervous system can stop clenching. You chew slowly, letting the sweetness linger, letting it soften you from the inside. Outside, the lagoon waits, dark and calm. Inside, the lamp flame holds steady. The locals' hands keep moving in the same gentle pattern, and you feel yourself becoming part of it. Not as a performer, not as a burden, just as a tired person being taught how to slow down. The reed basket, now filled with coconut sweets, sits ready by the doorway, and you have a sense that the night isn't done guiding you yet. You step out of the warm hut with sweetness still clinging to your fingertips and the reed basket resting against your forearm. Inside it, coconut sweets sit nestled in palm leaves, tidy as little moons. Above the doorway, the brass oil lamp holds a steady flame. For a moment you feel the modern urge to document it, to make calm real by saving it somewhere. The lagoon keeps going without your proof, and you follow its example. Back on the plankway, lantern light thins into indigo. The water below is a dark mirror that holds the sky so perfectly it feels like you are walking over another world. One that does not ask you to reply, fix, or optimize. The boards give a soft creak, and you automatically ease your steps. The air tastes of salt and damp wood, with a faint ribbon of toasted coconut trailing behind you. Ahead, the walkway widens into a small platform bordered by low rails smoothed by many hands. At its center sits a shallow bowl filled with shells arranged in a loose spiral. Each shell catches stray light and returns it in shell gold flashes so brief they feel like tiny winks. Beside the bowl lies a strip of teal green woven matting. Everything invites you quietly. You sit, set the reed basket beside you, and let the lagoon's hush settle around your head like a soft hood. It is not empty silence. It is layered quiet, full of small sounds that do not compete. Your mind tries out of habit to turn those sounds into tasks. You catch it. You let it stop. You begin close to your body. Breath in, breath out. The inhale is a little cooler at the tip of your nose. The exhale is warmer and longer. Your shoulders rise less. Your jaw loosens by degrees, like a knot that finally gets bored of being tight. You widen the circle. The platform speaks beneath you. With settling, rope fibers shifting. A tiny knock as a post meets a moving wave. Water laps against the stilts in a steady rhythm, as if the lagoon is patiently smoothing the edges of everything. A palm frond brushes another frond with a dry whisper that fades as quickly as it appears. Farther out, a boat rope taps a post. Tap, pause, tap, patient as a metronome set to slow down. A single bird note appears in the distance and then stops, as if it remembers this night is built for rest. The shell spiral answers a breeze with a barely audible clink. One shell touching another. It is rounded and polite, not sharp. You watch the shell gold glints shimmer and fade, and you understand the point without needing instructions. The lagoon rewards attention, but it never demands it. You reach into the reed basket and take one coconut sweet to anchor yourself. It sits in your palm with a slight stickiness, dusted with coconut. You take a slow bite. Warm caramel and coconut spread gently, and the faint salt rounds everything into softness. Your breathing lengthens again as if sweetness carries its own calm. You stay still long enough to notice the lagoon's smaller movements. Tiny bubbles rise and break at the surface. Something turns under the water and leaves a brief shimmer. Seagrass sways under the platform, and the place feels alive without being loud about it. A wider swell rolls through and lifts the platform almost imperceptibly. The shell bowl shifts with a soft rustle. Your stomach does a small, pleased flip, not fear, just the body acknowledging motion and choosing to trust it. You realize how often you brace in daily life, as if stillness is the only safe posture. Here, rest is allowed to move. You look out toward the darker stretch of water beyond the nearest huts. The surface is smooth, but not still. A rounded swirl appears, deliberate as a slow breath taken by something larger than a fish. A shape rises just enough to catch a smear of lantern light, then slips back under. The water closes over it without drama. And then you hear it again, the low hum that has followed you since you first stepped onto the plankway. It is clearer now, not louder, but more defined inside the quiet you have made. It is not a melody you can repeat. It is a tone that seems to sit between water and air, deep and gentle, as if the lagoon itself has a voice. Sometimes it strengthens when the posts carry vibration through the wood. Sometimes it thins when wind schemes the surface. Your skin notices it before your mind decides what it means. You do not chase it. You let it arrive, pass, and return. With each return, it feels less like something outside you and more like something your body remembers. Lagoon listening is not a performance. It is a habit of attention. Listen close, listen far, and let the night arrange you into something softer. When you finally stand, you do it slowly, careful not to disturb the work the lagoon is doing. You lift the reed basket and feel its comfortable weight, sweets nestled inside like small promises. You step back onto the plankway, and the low hum follows you, faint but steady, as if the water is preparing you for a closer serenade. You follow the plankway into a quieter corridor of huts, and the low hum that has been trailing you seems to drift a little ahead, like a guide who refuses to rush. The sky is fully indigo now. Stars sit crisp above the lagoon, and their reflections tremble whenever the boards flex under your steps. The huts here sit farther apart. Russet posts rise from the dark mirror, and woven roofs cut calm silhouettes against the sky. A brass oil lamp hangs from a porch beam and paints a turmeric yellow oval onto the boards. When you adjust the reed basket at your side, the coconut sweets inside give a soft rustle, palm leaves brushing palm leaves. The plankway curves toward a low platform that sits closer to the waterline than the others, built for watching rather than living. Smooth rails border the edge. Woven mats lie in teal and russet stripes. A small cluster of shells hangs from a beam and gives a shy clink when the breeze passes through, as if the night is clearing its throat without making a scene. You step onto the platform and let your weight settle. The structure dips a millimeter and then steadies. Locals move near the edges of your awareness, guiding without words. A lantern placed low and shaded, a corner of matting smoothed flat. You sit where the boards hold a little warmth, and you allow yourself to do something that usually feels suspicious. You wait. In front of you, the lagoon opens into a shallow crescent. The surface is almost unbroken, holding the sky in a dark, glassy sheet. A palm leans out over the water, fronds brushing one another in long, sleepy sweeps. Beneath the surface, sea grass sways, and the water darkens where it deepens, teal slipping into indigo like a slow exhale. Your mind tries to do its usual trick, turning silence into a problem to solve. But the lagoon offers no traction. The low hum arrives again, deeper now, and you feel it lightly in your ribs, as if the stilt posts are carrying a note the water keeps tuning. A ripple spreads across the crescent. Then another. Something rises near the edge of the reflected stars, not with a splash, but with the gentle insistence of a thought surfacing in a sleepy brain. A turtle's shell breaks the waterline, glossy and dark, catching a ribbon of lantern light that slides over its curve and disappears. The turtle pauses with its head angled upward and releases a soft breath, a rounded little puff that sounds like a sigh you didn't know you were holding. More ripples appear. Another shell surfaces, then another, each one emerging with the same calm lack of urgency. They move like they have all the time you've been pretending you don't. Flippers stir the water just enough to drift forward. When a turtle turns, the lagoon folds around it in smooth arcs, and the surface becomes a slow choreography of circles. This is the serenade. Not a melody you can hum back, but a pattern of gentle sounds that stacks into rhythm. Water slides off shell with a small hush. Breath arrives and leaves with soft puffs. A beak touches the surface with a tiny click, then disappears again. The noises are almost nothing, and that is exactly why your nervous system believes them. At certain moments the hum deepens, and you notice the simplest explanation. The turtle's slow movement stirs currents that brush the stilt posts, and the posts pass a faint vibration into the platform boards under you. The lagoon turns wood into an instrument without announcing it. You are sitting on an amplifier built for calm. You study the shells because you are finally still enough to study anything. Ridges catch lantern light in brief shell gold flickers. Some shells look older, rough at the edges, like weathered wood. Some look smoother, polished by years of unhurried travel. One turtle lifts its head higher, moonlight outlining the curve of its jaw, then lowers again and drifts away, unimpressed and serene. You reach into your reed basket, not to offer anything, because feeding wildlife is a charming way to turn beauty into chaos, but to take out a coconut sweet for yourself. You bite slowly. Caramel warmth and coconut richness bloom on your tongue, and the faint salt rounds the sweetness into something softer, more ocean-shaped. You chew, and the turtles continue their calm surfacing and sinking, as if they are keeping time for you. A turtle glides closer to the platform, stopping just beyond the posts. Its head rises, eyes glossy in lantern light, and it holds there for a moment that feels steady rather than sentimental. Then it exhales again, a soft release, and sinks, leaving a ring that widens until it touches the platform's shadow and disappears. Your eyelids grow heavier without a fight. You keep watching, but with softer focus, like you are looking through warm water. The turtles surface in a gentle sequence, each breath a quiet punctuation mark. Your own breath begins to match them. Inhale, pause, exhale, release. The platform rocks almost imperceptibly, and your body accepts the motion the way a child accepts being carried. When the turtles drift farther into the crescent and the ripples spread wider, you stay seated. You don't chase. You let the serenade continue at a distance, the hum thinning but not vanishing. The reed basket rests at your side, coconut sweetness ready for later, and the lagoon keeps singing you toward a deeper, calmer kind of tired. You stay on the watching platform until the last few ripples thin into the wider lagoon, and then your body performs a small miracle. It stands up without complaining. The boards answer with a sleepy creak. You lift the reed basket, feel the coconut sweets shift against palm leaves, and step back onto the plankway with the slow confidence of someone who has temporarily forgotten how to hurry. The hum follows you, quieter now, braided with rope taps and water brushing wood. Ahead, the lagoon is dotted with warmer pools of light, turmeric yellow halos floating on indigo water. The scent changes as you approach, turning from pure coconut into something layered. Toasted sugar, faint smoke, and the clean, green edge of palm. The plankway delivers you to a broad floating walkway, still anchored, still stilted, but built wide enough for lingering. It is a market, though it refuses to behave like the markets you know. There is no harsh brightness, no loud urgency, no aggressive persuasion. Just small boats and platforms tied to posts, lanterns shaded so the light falls downward in soft cones. Everything glows instead of glares. You step onto the first platform and feel it rise and settle with the tide. A gentle bob that reminds you the world can move without falling apart. Woven mats in teal and russet cover the boards. Shell gold accents appear in tiny places, on a carved rail, on the rim of a bowl, on the edge of a lantern screen, catching light and returning it like a quiet compliment. Near the corner sits a brass oil lamp with a protective hood, flame steady in the breeze. Beside it, woven reed baskets are stacked, empty and ready, as if the market's whole philosophy is simple. Take what you need, carry it carefully. Your own basket suddenly feels less like a prop and more like a badge. And yes, your tired brain enjoys that. You move along at a pace that matches the water. On your left, a small boat is moored with a rope looped in neat coils. In the boat, baskets hold palm sugar blocks, dried coconut ribbons, and shells drilled and threaded for small repairs. On your right, a low table holds shallow trays of coconut sweets like the ones you helped shape, golden, dusted with white, arranged with the kind of care that says these are not just snacks, they are welcome. Your stomach offers a polite reminder that you are still human. You take one more sweet from your basket and nibble it slowly, letting the familiar warmth act like a password into this place. The taste lands and spreads. Caramel, coconut, a faint salt, while the market keeps its soft, tidal rhythm. The locals move like hosts in a quiet museum. Attentive, calm, never blocking your view. Hands lift lids from bowls so aromas rise and fade. Fingers tie and untie palm leaf wraps with patient precision. Someone adjusts a lantern screen so the light guides instead of blinds. No words are needed. The whole market is a choreography of implied permission. You pause where the goods are simple ingredients that smell like comfort. Roasted coconut flakes sit darker at the edges from careful toasting. Citrus peel curls in a small bowl, bright even under dim light. A jar of thick coconut cream gleams faintly, holding a piece of the day's sun for later. A pot on low coals releases a steady, sweet steam. Dessert trying to be a blanket, because here even fire is polite. A few steps on, you find materials that keep the lagoon huts alive. Palm fibers are bundled and combed smooth. Strips of reed are soaked and laid out, ready to be woven. A wooden tool sits beside them, worn shiny from years of hands that keep working without rushing. You think of the stilt posts, the replaced planks, the tidy knots, and you understand that beauty here is maintained, not performed. The lagoon hum returns, almost imperceptible, layered with tiny sounds. Oars knocking gently against boat sides, baskets rustling, rope fibers creaking when tightened. Somewhere farther out, the turtles surface again, just a soft puff of breath, like they are checking in. You don't look for them. You let the sound land and pass, the way the lagoon taught you. You reach a platform where the lantern light is dimmer and the shadows deeper, indigo swallowing edges until everything looks like tempera paint on parchment. A small bowl of shell gold powder sits beside a brush, and a strip of wood is being touched with the faintest glimmer, like someone is restoring a railing's shine one patient stroke at a time. The gesture feels absurdly tender. In your world, people renovate by tearing everything down. Here, they keep things beautiful by adding a whisper. You shift your reed basket from one arm to the other, and the coconut sweets settle with a soft sigh. Your body feels heavier in the best way, weighted, grounded. The market's calm has added itself to you like a layer of warm cloth. At the far edge, the walkway narrows and leads toward a darker channel. Lanterns mark the path, each shaded so it throws light downward, never upward. as if the night sky is allowed to stay dark on purpose. You linger one last moment, noticing how nobody hurries you, how the tide continues its slow lift and drop. Then you step forward, leaving the floating market behind, carrying coconut sweetness and quiet hospitality with you, as if both are perfectly reasonable things to take into the deeper night. You carry the market's soft glow with you as you return along the plankway, the reed basket warm against your forearm and faintly perfumed with toasted coconut. The lagoon is quieter in this direction, less lantern-spotted, more indigo-washed. The hum is still there, tucked under the sounds of water brushing posts and rope tapping wood with patient insistence. As you approach the familiar hut, the one that smells like palm sugar and calm, the air shifts. The sweetness is still present, but it's been joined by another note. Sharper, hotter, slightly impatient. It's the scent of sugar flirting with the edge of burning. Not full disaster, not smoke alarm panic, but enough to make your tired brain perk up like a dog hearing a snack bag open. You step inside and feel the warmth wrap around you again. The brass oil lamp holds steady, shell gold edging catching its light. The workspace looks much the same, bowls, trays, coconut, palm leaves, except the rhythm has changed. The stirring is faster now. The pot's surface bubbles a little too eagerly. A tray sits waiting, but the mixture in the pot looks thicker than it should at this stage, as if it has decided to sprint ahead without permission. In a normal world, this is where someone would freak out dramatically and declare the night ruined. In Lemuria, the atmosphere is different. The locals' presence remains calm, but the movements become more deliberate, hands adjusting the pot's position, a ladle resting nearby, a cloth set ready. It is the quiet body language of people who know exactly what to do when sweetness starts thinking it's the main character. And apparently you have been gently drafted into the rescue team. The pot is the problem. Coconut milk and palm sugar, meant to reduce slowly into a glossy caramel, have tightened too quickly. The mixture is edging toward grainy. If it tips over the line, it will seize, turning from silky to stubborn, from treat to tragic clump. It's not life or death, it's dessert, but you can feel the unspoken rule here. Even small things deserve care. You set your reed basket down away from the heat, because coconut sweets are lovely, but they are not heat-resistant heroes. You wash your hands in a shallow bowl, the water cool and faintly scented with something herbal, and you return to the table with your sleeves rolled up in that universal posture of, fine, I will participate in competence. The first step is lowering the heat. The pot is shifted off the coals to a slightly cooler spot, close enough to stay warm, far enough to stop the aggressive bubbling. The sound changes almost immediately, from eager popping to a softer, slower blip. Your shoulders lower with it because you are embarrassingly easy to calm when the world behaves. The second step is rescuing texture. A small bowl of warm coconut milk is brought closer, already warmed so it won't shock the mixture. A spoon dips into it, then drizzles a thin stream into the pot, not all at once, not greedily. The caramel loosens slightly, like a clenched fist relaxing when it realizes nobody is trying to pry it open by force. You stir, not fast, not frantic, steady. The spoon makes a slow circle through the thick mixture, scraping the bottom with a gentle insistence that says, "I see you. I'm not leaving you to burn." The smell shifts again, less sharp, more rounded. The sweetness returns to being warm rather than edgy. A small lump appears, one stubborn grainy patch forming near the edge. Your modern brain wants to poke it aggressively and demand it cooperate. Lemuria teaches you the opposite. You keep stirring, and you press the lump gently against the side of the pot, smearing it into the warmer liquid until it dissolves back into smoothness. It feels like de-escalation therapy, but for sugar. The pot responds. The mixture begins to shine again, that soft gloss returning as the palm sugar and coconut fat re-emulsify into something silky. You watch the spoon trail briefly through it, leaving a line that holds for a breath before the caramel closes over itself. That's the sign. Not perfect, but saved. A near miss handled with quiet skill instead of drama. But the night isn't finished testing your ability to remain calm in the face of mild inconvenience. The next issue arrives when the mixture is ready to be poured. A tray is set out, lined with palm leaves. It is positioned carefully on the low table, its surface level. The pot is lifted, and the caramel begins to flow in a thick stream. For one beautiful second, it looks like liquid amber. Then the tray tilts. Not dramatically, no cinematic slow-motion catastrophe, just a subtle shift. One corner dips a fraction because the table leg sits on a board that isn't quite as stable as it looked. The caramel stream begins to run toward the lower edge, forming a thicker ridge on one side. If it keeps going, the sweets will set unevenly. Some too thick, some too thin, texture ruined, shapes messy. In your world, this is where you might launch into frantic problem solving and accidentally make it worse. Here, the solution is almost insulting in its simplicity. You stabilize the table. You slide your hand under the shaky leg and wedge a folded strip of woven matting beneath it, teal and russet, already used for 100 quiet fixes. The table steadies. The tray's surface becomes level again. The caramel flow evens out, spreading in a slow, glossy sheet that steams faintly in the warm air. You resume the pour. The mixture settles, and the ridge smooths out as it levels itself. Because even caramel, it turns out, will correct its course if you stop panicking long enough to let it. Now comes the cooling. The tray sits while the surface dulls from high gloss to softer sheen. The scent in the hut becomes dense and comforting. Coconut, palm sugar, faint smoke from coals that behave. You stand near the tray, not guarding it like a security detail, but simply being present. Being present is the main skill you're practicing tonight, and you're doing surprisingly well for someone whose brain probably runs 10 tabs at all times. When the caramel reaches the right warmth, pliable, not sticky like fresh lava, you sprinkle grated coconut over it. The flakes land like soft snow, absorbing shine, adding texture. You fold the mixture gently with a paddle, turning it over itself until it becomes a thick, pale gold mass. The earlier crisis has left no bitterness behind, only a quieter respect for timing. You portion the mixture into small pieces, roll them between your palms, dust them with coconut. Each sweet forms with satisfying resistance, holding shape like it believes in itself. You arrange them in neat rows on palm leaves, and for a moment you feel something that has nothing to do with sugar. Steady competence. The kind that doesn't require applause, just a calm exhale. You glance toward the doorway. Outside, the lagoon is still indigo and patient. The hum is faint but present. Somewhere beyond the huts, turtles surface and sink, serenading the night without asking for credit. Inside, the rescued sweets cool into perfection, or at least into charming, handmade reality, which is often better. You wash your hands again, dry them on a cloth, and lift the reed basket. It is filled with coconut sweets that almost didn't happen, and somehow that makes them taste even softer in your imagination. Proof that small problems can be met with small, gentle solutions, and you don't have to turn every wobble into a crisis to be worthy of rest. You step back onto the plankway with the reed basket balanced against your hip, and the first thing you notice is how the air has changed. It is still warm, still salted, still gentle enough to feel like it's on your side. But now it carries a cooler edge, the faint metallic scent of rain far away. The lagoon surface, which has been behaving like polished glass, begins to show longer, more deliberate ripples, as if it has taken a deeper breath. Above the huts, the sky shifts from crisp, star-studded indigo to something slightly smeared, clouds sliding in like a slow curtain. Lantern light becomes more important. Turmeric yellow halos deepen, and the russet posts look darker, more serious. The brass oil lamps still burn steadily, but their flames lean and straighten as the breeze tests them. You keep walking because fear is not invited here, and because you've already learned tonight that movement can be calm. The boards flex under your steps. Rope lines, tied in those tidy knots, begin to hum softly when the wind presses against them. The low lagoon hum changes too, less like a lullaby, more like a steady note held under a song, the kind that tells you something is coming without insisting it will be terrible. A gust passes through and makes the shells hanging under an eave clink. Just once, then silence again. Palm fronds lift and settle. The water pushes a little harder against the stilt posts, and the posts answer with a deeper vibration that you feel in your feet. You turn a corner and see the first small problem. A lantern, hung lower than the others, swings wider than it should. Its light arcs across the boards and water in restless ellipses. It is still shaded, still polite, but it is no longer steady. Each swing throws shell gold glints across the rail, then snatches them away again. It's hypnotic for about 3 seconds, and then your practical brain quietly wakes up. Nearby, a section of plankway looks slightly lifted at one edge, a board that has loosened just enough to complain when the wind pushes the structure. It isn't a dramatic hazard. It's the kind of small instability that becomes bigger only if ignored. The lagoon doesn't feel dangerous. It feels active, like it's reminding the huts and walkways that they are guests here too. You shift the reed basket to one arm and place your free hand on the railing. You lean in and test the loose plank with your foot, gentle pressure, then release. The board rises a fraction and settles again. A loose nail or a worn tie, something simple, something fixable. In another life, you would sigh and resent the inconvenience, as if the universe owes you a frictionless evening. But you've been stirring caramel and leveling trays and learning lagoon listening, and something in you has softened into competence without drama. You look for the nearest bundle of repair materials, because in Lemuria, repair supplies are never far. Under the edge of the platform, half hidden in shadow, you find what you expected. A small stash of palm fiber rope, a short wooden wedge, and a strip of teal and russet woven matting folded neatly like it has done this job before. The locals have built a culture where problems are anticipated calmly, not because they're pessimists, but because they respect water and wind the way you respect gravity. You kneel, steadying yourself as the platform gives a mild lift with the tide. The brass oil lamp above you throws a warm pool of light. You slide the wooden wedge beneath the lifted edge of the plank where it meets the support beam. It fits with a satisfying snugness, like it was made for this exact board, or at least for this exact type of board, because everything here is designed to be mended. You press down gently until the plank rests flush again. The creak changes, less complaint, more quiet acceptance. Then you loop a length of palm fiber rope around the nearest rail post and under the plank's support, tightening it with the same respectful firmness you used when you pressed the sugar lump into smoothness. You don't yank. You tighten. You let the fibers grip. You tie the knot slowly, making it tidy enough that the lagoon doesn't have to look at your messy work. The board steadies. The wind rolls through again, stronger, and this time the plankway holds. The lantern still swings, but the wobble beneath your feet is gone. You stand and dust your hands off, and for a second you feel absurdly proud, like you've just repaired a spaceship. It's a plank. It's a wedge. It's rope. Still, the satisfaction is real. Small stability matters. Now you turn your attention to the swinging lantern. It isn't in danger of falling, but its movement is wasting light, and the restless sweeping makes the whole walkway feel less calm. You step closer, careful of the tide's gentle lift. The lantern's chain pulls tight with each gust, the shade tapping softly against its frame. You hold the lantern with one hand, feeling the warmth through the metal, and with the other you shorten the chain by looping it once around the hook. The lantern rises a few inches, bringing its center of gravity closer to the beam. The next gust arrives and the swing is smaller, more controlled. You adjust the shade so the light points downward again, staying kind to the night sky. The flame steadies, as if relieved to stop performing acrobatics. As you release the lantern, the platform feels calmer. Not because the wind has stopped, but because the structure is behaving again. The difference is subtle, and yet your body registers it immediately. Your breathing slows, your shoulders settle. The lagoon answers with another long swell that moves through the posts like a slow heartbeat. Farther out, you hear a soft exhale. One of the turtles, surfacing somewhere in the darker water. The sound is faint, but it lands like reassurance. The lagoon's older residents are not alarmed. They continue their quiet routine. The serenade hasn't been canceled. It has simply changed key. Clouds thicken overhead, and the air cools a little more. You feel the first fine mist touch your skin. Not rain yet, just the lagoon's way of letting you know water is in charge. The hut's woven roofs darken at the edges. Shell gold accents blink in the shifting light. The palette deepens. Indigo becomes richer, russet becomes almost mahogany, turmeric lantern light becomes more intimate, teal shutters look darker and more protective. You lift the reed basket and continue along the plankway, checking as you go, one more rope line, one more post, one more lantern shade, making small adjustments where needed. The work is gentle, not urgent. You don't become the hero of the storm. You become a quiet part of the place's ongoing maintenance, the same way you became part of the coconut sweet rhythm earlier. By the time you reach the next junction, the lanterns are steadier, the boards feel secure, and the wind, while present, has lost its sharpness. The storm breath has passed through without turning into a storm, or perhaps it has decided to behave because everyone else is behaving. You pause, look out over the lagoon's rippling indigo surface, and feel a calm satisfaction settle into you. Proof that a small problem can be met with small, steady actions, and that peace isn't the absence of movement, but the presence of quiet readiness. You keep moving, because the lagoon has already taught you that the best response to a shifting world is not panic, but steady feet. The plankway carries you into a longer stretch of stilt bridges, narrower here, older, with posts that rise like dark russet pencils from the indigo water. The wind still travels through, but it has lost its sharp curiosity. It feels more like a slow, testing hand than a shove. The lanterns along this route are spaced farther apart, each one shaded to protect the night. Their turmeric yellow pools of light fall on the boards and soft islands, leaving long spans where you walk in shadow, guided by the faint glow ahead and the darker silhouettes of huts beyond. Teal shutters appear occasionally, closed against the damp air, and when the light catches their edges, they look like sea glass tucked into the architecture. Your reed basket bumps gently against your hip with every step. Inside, the coconut sweets settle with a quiet rustle, palm leaves cushioning them like they are fragile ideas. You think briefly of how close they came to not existing, how the caramel almost seized, how the tray almost tilted into uneven thickness, how you saved the texture with warm coconut milk and calm stirring. It makes you smile in the smallest way, not because you need credit, but because you can feel your body remembering a new rule. Problems can be handled softly. Ahead, the stilt bridge rises slightly, then dips, following the lagoon's contours. The boards underfoot are darker here, polished by time and salt. Your footsteps naturally become quieter. You place your feet with more care, not out of fear, but out of respect for a structure that moves with the tide. At the first longer span, you notice the locals' tidy methods are already in place. A rope line runs along the outer rail, tied at regular intervals with identical knots, clean, compact, and easy to check at a glance. Small wooden wedges sit tucked under certain joints, not visible unless you look, like subtle braces hidden in plain sight. On a post near the midpoint, a strip of teal and russet woven matting is wrapped around the wood where the rope might rub, preventing fray. Nothing here is dramatic. Everything is prepared. You pause and test the rope with your fingertips. It gives slightly and then holds, firm enough to support, flexible enough to move. The fiber feels rough but reliable. When the breeze presses in, the rope hums faintly, the sound blending with the deeper lagoon vibration you've been tracking all night. You continue, and the bridge answers. The boards flex with your weight and then return like a slow inhale and exhale. Under the bridge, the water looks darker, and you can feel the current moving more decisively through this channel. It brushes the stilt posts in longer strokes, and the posts pass the sensation upward into the wood. You feel it through your soles. The lagoon's heartbeat, measured and uninterested in your schedule. Halfway across, you find another small issue, nothing catastrophic, just the kind of thing that becomes annoying if left alone. A section of rail rope has loosened at its knot. The rope is still tied, but the loop has widened, and the line droops a little, creating a slack curve that could catch a basket handle or brush an ankle when the walkway sways. It is a minor inconvenience wearing the mask of a future problem. You set the reed basket down in a pool of lantern light where the boards are driest. The brass oil lamp nearby throws steady warmth and makes shell gold accents on the rail blink softly. You crouch, steadying yourself with one hand on the post, and examine the knot. It's a simple hitch, cleanly tied, but the fiber has been damp, then dry, then damp again. It has stretched like anything living. You pull the rope through slowly, tightening the loop until the line sits straight again. The fibers creak softly as they settle. You retie the hitch with the same care you used when wedging the earlier plank into place. Firm, tidy, no wasted motion. You tuck the tail end so it won't flap in wind. When you're done, the rope line looks identical to the others because that is the point. A repair should blend into the system, not announce itself. You stand and feel a quiet satisfaction bloom in your chest. The kind that doesn't spike adrenaline but settles like warm tea. You pick up the reed basket, and the sweets inside shift once and then go still, as if they approve. You walk on. The next stilt bridge is longer, and the shadowed span makes the lagoon feel deeper. The lanterns are farther apart, and between them you move through indigo darkness where the water below holds the sky's reflection in a trembling sheet. A cloud passes overhead, dimming the stars for a moment, then sliding on. The world keeps changing, but the bridge holds. You remember the shell spiral platform, how the shells clinked softly and taught you to listen close and far. You remember how your breath matched the lagoon's rhythm, how your jaw unclenched like it had finally gotten tired of being tense. You carry that listening with you now. You listen to your own footfalls. You listen to the wood's reply. You listen to the water's brush against posts. When the wind arrives, you feel it before it pushes, and you adjust your balance without thinking. Near the end of the span, you hear a soft exhale out over the water. A turtle surfaces somewhere beyond the posts, unseen but unmistakable in the sound. Rounded, calm, unbothered. The serenade continues even when you're not watching. The lagoon does not perform for you. It simply exists in its own gentle routine, and that steadiness is oddly comforting. You reach a junction where the stilt bridge meets a broader platform. Here, the locals' methods become even clearer. A small bundle of palm fiber rope sits in a corner, covered with a flap of woven matting to protect it from mist. Two wooden wedges rest beside it, their edges worn smooth from use. A shallow bowl holds a few shells and a small brush, Tools for touching up shell gold accents that keep the rails from looking tired. Maintenance, ready and quiet. You don't need to be told what to do. You check one more post, running your fingers along the rope where it wraps. You tighten a second knot by a fraction. You press a wedge under a joint that looks slightly lifted, more preventive than urgent. Each action is small and precise, like the slow stirring that saved the caramel, like leveling the tray so sweetness could spread evenly, like shortening the lantern chain so light could fall where it belongs. When you step back and look along the walkway, it feels steadier, not rigid but dependable. The lanterns glow in their shaded cones. The rails hold their lines. The boards flex and return with the tide. You feel a quiet pride settle into you, not loud enough to wake the night, but real enough to warm you from the inside. You lift the reed basket and continue, moving toward the next cluster of huts with the calm confidence of someone who has remembered something important. Competence does not need drama to be meaningful. Sometimes it is just you, a rope, a wedge, a steady breath, and the lagoon agreeing to hold you while you learn to hold yourself. You keep walking until the stilt bridges widen and the boards begin to feel newer underfoot, as if the lagoon is gently graduating you from the older, creakier, please don't trip route to something more sheltered. The wind is still around, but it's softened into a cooler breath that no longer tries to push you off balance. Lantern light remains shaded and kind, turmeric yellow pools guiding you forward without turning the night into a stage. A small platform appears ahead, half hidden behind a screen of hanging palm fronds. A brass oil lamp burns low near the entrance, its flame steady, the shell gold edge of its hood catching and releasing light like a slow blink. You step onto the platform and feel the structure dip and settle, not unstable, just alive. The reed basket at your side, still holding coconut sweets, gives a quiet rustle, palm leaves shifting, as if it knows this path. The walkway beyond narrows into something that feels less like a street and more like an invitation. Posts rise close together. Teal-green shutters on a nearby hut are drawn almost shut, leaving thin slits of light. The air shifts again, and the scent becomes greener. Sap and salt and damp leaf, still threaded with coconut, but now more raw, more alive. You pass through the curtain of fronds and find the hidden garden. It isn't a garden in the way your modern brain expects. No tidy rows, no aggressive symmetry, no signs insisting you stay on the path because nature is fragile. This grove feels integrated, not fenced off. Palms rise from small islands of sand and root mounds, some connected by narrow wooden walkways, some standing alone with their roots gripping the lagoon's edge like fingers holding a bowl. The ground is a patchwork of damp earth, woven mats laid over soft spots, and wooden platforms raised just enough to keep feet dry when the tide gets playful. Lanterns hang here too, but fewer and dimmer, shaded so the light falls downward onto the roots and baskets rather than outward across the water. The color palette deepens in the grove. Indigo shadows under fronds, russet trunks and posts warmed by lamp glow, turmeric yellow highlights on rope and leaf edges, teal green everywhere the leaves catch what little light they're given. Shell gold glints appear in small places, on the rim of a bowl, on the edge of a carving. like the grove is wearing jewelry only it can see. You step onto a raised platform near the base of a palm and notice the practical elegance immediately. A coil of rope rests in a dry corner. A wooden pole, smooth, worn and balanced, leans against a post. A reed basket sits open, empty, ready. No grand tools, no loud machinery, just objects designed to be carried, repaired, and used again. The locals are present in that Lemurian way. Near enough to guide you, quiet enough to let you breathe. Someone moves ahead and gently parts a frond to reveal a cluster of coconuts hanging low, heavy, round, and dark against the indigo canopy. Another pair of hands steadies a ladder-like frame made from lashed wood. More of a leaning support than a true ladder, because the grove respects gravity but doesn't worship it. You don't receive instructions in words. You receive them in sequence. A rope is looped around a coconut stem, not to yank, but to control the fall. The wooden pole nudges the cluster with a calm, practiced push. The coconut drops into waiting hands with a soft thud, weighty, honest, then is lowered into a reed basket with care, because even a hard-shelled fruit deserves not to be bruised. The whole action feels less like harvesting and more like a handoff. You are offered a coconut through the simplest gesture. It is placed within reach. You lift it and feel its heft, the roughness of husk fibers, the faint cool damp where it has held night air. It smells green and earthy, like palm and rain and distance. You rotate it slowly, noticing the subtle ridges, the places where the husk is tighter, the faint scuff marks that tell you it has bumped against its neighbors in the wind. Then you see what makes this grove hidden in the more meaningful sense. At the far side of the palms is a small sheltered nook, half roofed with woven fronds, half open to the lagoon air, where coconut is not just collected, but understood. Here, shallow trays hold shredded coconut drying gently, not baked harshly. A low charcoal brazier sits tucked into a clay surround, heat modest, smoke controlled. The scent is intoxicating in a quiet way. Toasted coconut, warm husk, a trace of caramelized sugar lingering in the wood from past batches. This is where sweetness begins before it becomes dessert. You watch hands choose coconuts with quiet discernment. Some are set aside for milk, heavier, sloshing slightly when tilted. Some are chosen for flesh, firm, not too soft. Some are earmarked for oil, older, richer, meant to be pressed slowly. Nothing is random. Nothing is wasted. The husk fibers are combed and bundled for rope. Shell fragments are stacked for scoops and scrapers. Even the thin brown skin peeled from coconut meat is collected, ready to be toasted into depth. You realize that the coconut sweet you ate earlier wasn't simply a treat. It was the last step of a long chain of attention. This lagoon doesn't do sweetness as an impulse purchase. It does sweetness as an outcome of care, a craft, a kind of edible patience. Your reed basket rests beside you, and you glance at the coconut sweets inside as if you're seeing them for the first time. They are no longer just golden bites of comfort. They are a summary of this place's philosophy. Slow heat, steady hands, respect for timing, and a calm refusal to force things faster than they want to become. A coconut is cracked in a controlled way, not smashed, not brutal. The shell opens with a dull, satisfying sound, and the water inside is caught in a bowl. The flesh is scraped with a curved tool that glides rather than hacks. The shavings fall into a tray like pale confetti. The movement is so smooth it makes your shoulders relax, as if your body is borrowing the technique. Don't fight, don't rush, just keep going steadily. You reach out and touch a bundle of coconut fiber. It feels soft and resilient, like hair that has been washed and combed. You imagine it becoming rope that holds a stilt bridge steady, or a mat that wedges a table leg, or a tie that shortens a lantern chain. Suddenly, the earlier repairs you made along the walkway feel connected to the sweets in your basket. The lagoon is one system. Sweetness and stability come from the same habit. Care in small motions repeated. The breeze moves through the grove and shakes the fronds overhead. A few droplets fall. Fine mist, not real rain. Cool on your skin. The palms accept it without drama. The lantern flames lean and straighten, protected by their hoods. The shell gold glints blink and vanish. Your mind, which usually tries to turn every moment into a lesson you can weaponize for productivity, finally chooses a better approach. It simply absorbs. You take another coconut sweet from your basket, not because you need it, but because the grove has taught you to appreciate the chain behind it. You bite slowly. The sweetness lands warm and round. You imagine the palm sugar shaved and melted, the coconut milk reduced patiently, the grated flesh folded in at the right moment. You remember how close the batch came to seizing, and how a little warm milk and calm stirring brought it back. The grove makes even that small mishap feel like part of the craft, an advanced lesson you didn't ask for, but quietly earned. You linger long enough that the grove's quiet competence begins to feel normal. Palms sway, baskets fill, fibers bundle, trays dry. The lagoon breathes around the roots, and you understand why the locals treat sweetness the way they do. Because in a world built on water, stability is made, not assumed, and so is comfort. When you finally lift your reed basket and step back toward the plankway, you carry more than coconut sweets. You carry the sense that patience is not passive. It is a skill, a craft, a kind of gentle strength the lagoon has been teaching you all night. You leave the hidden palm grove with its clean, green scent still clinging to you, and the plankway receives you like a rhythm you no longer have to fight. Mist has gathered while you were among the trunks, softening the lantern halos until each turmeric glow looks brushed onto indigo water. Your reed basket swings gently at your side, coconut sweets cushioned in palm leaves, warm with the memory of that batch you nearly lost before you coaxed it back into silk. The walkway angles toward the waterline again, toward a low watching deck built close to the lagoon's surface. The boards here sit darker and damper, and you feel the tide's presence immediately. A faint lift, a faint settle, the structure breathing under you. Nearby huts lean in with woven roofs, russet posts rising like quiet pillars. A brass oil lamp burns low beneath an eave, steady and restrained. You step onto the deck and let it take your weight. The boards flex once, then steady. You choose a spot near the edge and set the reed basket down on a strip of teal and russet matting so it won't scrape. because you have learned that quiet is a kind of courtesy here. The sweets rustle once and then go still. Mist becomes the lagoon's curtain. Lantern ovals become gentle footlights. Above, stars hold on between drifting clouds, and below, the water keeps a trembling mirror of them. Somewhere beneath the surface a low hum gathers, more vibration than sound, traveling through posts and boards until it settles in your ribs and then in your breath. You wait, and you do it without turning waiting into a task. At first the serenade is made of small things. Water brushing wood with a soft hush. Rope tapping a post. Tap, pause, tap. A shell charm under an eave answering the breeze with a shy clink. Your mind tries to label it all because it thinks naming is control. The lagoon doesn't reward control. It rewards attention. So you listen and you let the labels dissolve. A ripple forms near the deck's shadow, close enough that you can see surface tension bead along a rounded edge. A turtle's shell breaks the waterline. Dark, glossy, briefly edged with lantern light that flashes shell gold and then slides away. A head emerges, calm and deliberate, and a soft exhale puffs into the night. Not a splash, not a performance, just a quiet release, like someone letting go of the last little bit of a day. Another turtle surfaces nearby, then another, spaced out in an unhurried gathering. Their movements are so economical they feel gentle. A flipper sweeps once and the water folds around it in smooth arcs. A beak touches the surface with a tiny click, then disappears again. Droplets slip off shell ridges and land with rounded taps that would be invisible in your usual life. But tonight your nervous system is tuned for smallness. When a turtle turns beneath the surface, it sends a slow wave toward the stilt posts. The wave meets wood, and the deck answers with a faint vibration that deepens the hum for a moment, like a bass note. You feel it through your soles. The lagoon is playing the structure you're sitting on, and the structure is playing you back into calm. You become aware of your own noise, not with shame, but with curiosity. When you shift your knee, the mat whispers against the boards. You slow your movement, and the turtles continue their steady surfacing and sinking, indifferent to you as long as you remain a quiet part of the scene. One turtle drifts closer than the others, stopping just beyond the nearest post. Its eye catches a thread of lantern light and shines softly. It holds there, breathing once, then again, each exhale a calm punctuation mark. Mist curls around its shell, making it look like an island floating in a dream that forgot to include urgency. You do not reach out. You let closeness be its own gift. You lift a coconut sweet from the reed basket, careful not to rustle the palm leaves. You bite slowly, warm caramel and coconut bloom, and the faint salt rounds the sweetness into something deeper, more lagoon-shaped. Chewing becomes part of the rhythm, and your breath falls into the turtle's pace. Slow, steady, unforced. As the gathering spreads across the dark crescent, the music shifts with distance. Near the lantern ovals, the small sounds, breath, drip, click, become crisp. In the darker channel, the hum grows stronger, traveling under the deck through the posts, a note you feel rather than hear. Mist softens everything again, wrapping sound in velvet. You remember the swinging lantern you steadied earlier, how a small loop in a chain turned restless light into calm glow. You remember the loose plank you wedged and tied, how the walkway stopped complaining once it felt supported. The lagoon feels like that, active, moving, alive yet profoundly held. Teaches steadiness, not stillness. Your eyelids grow heavier, not like a shutdown, but like a curtain lowering at the right time. The deck lifts with a slow swell and lowers again, and your body accepts the motion without bracing. The turtles continue their soft surfacing and sinking, nearer than before, their breaths threading into the night like tiny reassurances. The low hum holds steady beneath everything, patiently tuning you towards sleep. You stay there, letting coconut sweetness linger, letting mist blur the world into something kinder, letting the lagoon's serenade carry you toward the edge of rest where even your thoughts begin to move like turtles. Slow, deliberate, and finally at peace. You leave the watching deck the way you leave a warm pillow, slowly, with a quiet promise to return to comfort soon. Mist sits low over the lagoon, softening edges until lantern halos look like turmeric smudged onto indigo water. The turtles drift farther out, their breaths thinning, and the low hum settles back into the stilt posts, continuing without needing an audience. You lift the woven reed basket and feel the coconut sweets shift once, palm leaves whispering. You step onto the plankway, letting your feet remember the night's lessons. Place weight softly, let the boards flex, accept the tide's gentle lift and settle. You head toward the brighter clusters of huts, except the brighter clusters aren't bright. At first, it's just an odd dimness. Then you reach the first post where a shaded lantern usually hangs, guiding your steps while leaving the sky dark. The bracket is there. The chain is there. The lantern is not. You pause, not frightened, just mildly offended on principle. Your tired mind tries to turn it into a thriller because it thinks suspense counts as progress. You let that thought surface, then you let it sink turtle slow. This is Lemuria. The usual suspects are wind, tide, and rope. You walk to the next post. Another empty hook. Another chain dangling, swaying faintly. The oil scent still lingers, warm and close, as if the lanterns were here only minutes ago. A few steps farther, the next lantern is gone too. A cluster missing, enough to make the walkway feel less like a lullaby and more like careful tiptoe. You kneel near a post and look for the simple story. The chain isn't broken. The bracket isn't bent. The wood shows no scorch marks. Nothing suggests force. Whatever happened, it happened as one quiet event, like a line slipping free and being carried away by motion rather than malice. So you do what the lagoon has trained you to do. You listen. Closed sounds sharpen. Water brushes the posts with a soft hush. Rope taps somewhere. Tap, pause, tap, steady and patient. Under it all, the low hum continues, reliable enough to use like a compass. You follow the tapping as the plankway bends toward a narrower channel where the current runs stronger. Here the water looks darker, teal fading into indigo under closely spaced posts. A gentle swell lifts the boards. You steady yourself with one hand on the rail and feel a rope line stretched along the outer edge. Feels tighter than it should, as if it has taken a strain. You trace the rope with your fingertips until it disappears under a flap of teal and russet woven matting meant to protect knots from weather. The matting has shifted aside. Beneath it, the clue sits plainly in lantern dim light. The rope is frayed where it rubs the post, fibers worn into a fuzzy halo. Not snapped, not dramatic, just tired. The knot nearby looks a fraction looser than the others. You straighten and scan the channel. At first you see only mist and black water. Then a warmer glimmer appears farther down, low to the surface, moving gently. It isn't starlight. It's lantern light, turmeric, not silver. It disappears behind a post, reappears, disappears again, like it's shy. You walk carefully, keeping the glow in view. With each step it becomes clearer. Not one light, but several. A cluster bobbing together. The mystery resolves itself into something almost comically ordinary. You reach a side platform used for tying boats and rinsing baskets. A mooring line knocks softly against a post, the source of the tapping. You lean over the rail and look down into the sheltered curve of the channel. There floats a string of lanterns still attached to their rope, shades intact, brass frames unbroken. Some flames are dimmed by mist, some protected by their hoods and still steady, and together they make a low, warm constellation on the water. The line has drifted and snagged on a bundle of palm roots reaching into the lagoon like slow fingers. The lanterns bump gently against the roots, clicking now and then, never harsh. The tide lifts them and lowers them, rocking them with the same patient motion you felt under the watching deck. You exhale, long and relieved, less because anything terrible almost happened, and more because your nervous system still expects inconvenience to arrive wearing a mask. The explanation lands softly. Earlier wind strained the frayed rope. The tide shifted. The lantern line slipped free. The current carried it into this sheltered nook. The roots caught it before it could wander into deeper water. No theft, no menace, just water doing water things. You don't haul the lanterns up yet. You rest a hand on the rail, steady your breathing, and let your eyes memorize the way the cluster sits against the roots. The missing glow has been found. The path can be made gentle again. For now, you stand in mist and soft light, coconut sweets waiting in their basket at your side, and you let the night's small problems settle into a simple next step. One calm action, then another, until the lagoon returns to its favorite state, quietly held. You stand over the rail and watch the lantern cluster bob against the palm roots, each shaded flame doing its best under a thin veil of mist. The current nudges them, the roots hold them, and the lagoon pretends it has no idea it just created a mystery for you to solve. It's almost charming, in the way a house cat knocks something off a shelf and then watches you clean it up with wide, innocent eyes. You shift your reed basket higher on your arm so it won't bump the rail, then crouch near the mooring line that taps the post. Tap, pause, tap, still patient. In the corner of the platform, under a flap of woven matting, you find what you hoped for. A coil of palm fiber rope, a short wooden pole with a hook-shaped end. and a small bundle of dry leaf-wick material wrapped neatly like it has been waiting for a night like this. Lemuria doesn't panic about small problems, but it also doesn't pretend small problems won't happen. You begin with the simplest, safest step, stabilizing the lanterns where they are. You lean down with the hooked pole and catch the lantern line gently, lifting just enough to take strain off the roots. The lanterns bump softly, clink, hush, then settle. You guide the line toward the platform, not pulling hard, just coaxing it the way you coax caramel back into silk. The current resists mildly because water always negotiates, but it's a lazy resistance, more habit than opposition. When the first lantern reaches the platform's edge, you steady it with your free hand. The brass frame is warm. The shade is damp with mist. Inside, the flame is smaller than before, breathing low, but alive. You tilt it slightly to keep the oil from sloshing and bring it onto the boards. One by one, you lift the lanterns out of the water's reach, laying them in a neat row on the teal and russet matting so they don't scrape or roll. Some flames have survived perfectly, protected by their hoods and the lagoon's gentle indecision. Others are struggling, wicks soaked, flames sputtering as if they're tired of pretending they enjoy being damp. You don't scold them. You don't treat them like failures. You treat them like what they are. Small lights that need a little help. You open the first lantern and check the wick. It's wet at the tip. The oil smells warm and familiar. That soft, steady scent that has followed you through huts and plankways. You pull out a strip of dry leaf-wick material and twist it gently, then press it against the damp wick to draw moisture away. The motion is slow, careful. A wick is not something you bully into brightness. You strike a tiny ember from a protected coal tucked into a small clay cup. Someone thought ahead, of course, and touch it to the wick. The flame catches in a modest flare, then steadies, returning to a small, patient glow. You close the lantern and adjust the shade so the light points downward again, respectful of the night sky. You repeat the process. Dab the wick. Relight if needed. Close and shade. Each lantern returns to life with quiet dignity, as if it always intended to work and simply got briefly distracted by tides and roots. Your breathing falls into the rhythm. Open, tend, close. Open, tend, close. The reed basket sits beside you, coconut sweets waiting like rewards you don't have to earn. When the lanterns are steady again, you turn to the real fix, making sure they don't decide to go on another midnight swim. You find the frayed section of rope line near the post, the fibers worn into fuzzy softness. It's not snapped, but it's tired, and the lagoon has already demonstrated what happens when tired things are asked to hold steady. You cut away the worst of the fray, not dramatically, just cleanly, and splice in a fresh length of palm fiber rope from the coil. You tie it with the same tidy knot pattern you saw along the stilt bridges, tightening slowly until the line sits straight, secure, and quietly confident. Then you add a small protective wrap where the rope rubs the post. A strip of woven matting wound snugly and tied off. It's a simple solution, almost embarrassingly practical. And it works because most calm fixes are not complicated. They're just done in time. Now the lanterns can go back where they belong. You lift the first one and carry it to the nearest empty bracket. The chain swings slightly in the breeze, and you remember how earlier you shortened a lantern chain to make its movement smaller. You do that again here, looping the chain once so the lantern sits a few inches higher and steadier. You hang it carefully, then step back to see the light fall in the correct cone. Turmeric yellow on boards, a soft reflection on water, darkness preserved above. You hang the second, then the third. Each lantern returns to its place like a note rejoining a melody. As the walkway regains its gentle pools of light, the whole lagoon changes mood. The subtle but immediate shadows look intentional again rather than accidental. The path feels safer without becoming loud. The hut's russet posts glow at the edges. Teal shutters reappear from darkness, calm and familiar. Shell gold accents blink softly on railings and lamp hoods, tiny glints that make the night feel cared for. You carry the last lantern back to its hook and set it in place, adjusting its shade with the same respect you've practiced all evening. Guide light where it helps, leave darkness where it soothes. When you're done, you stand in the middle of the restored stretch and let the scene settle. The missing glow has returned. The lagoon's order has not been forced into place. It has been gently restored, like smoothing a blanket rather than folding it into rigid corners. A breeze passes through. The lantern flames lean, then straighten. The rope line holds without complaint. Water brushes the posts with its steady hush. In the distance, a turtle exhales, soft puff, then silence. Like a quiet approval stamp from the lagoon's oldest residents. The low hum deepens for a moment as a swell slides through, vibrating the stilt posts, then eases back into its steady note. You pick up your reed basket and feel the coconut sweet settle. You take one out not because you need sugar, but because rituals help close loops. You bite slowly. The caramel warmth and coconut richness bloom, rounded by salt, and the taste feels like a reward for patience rather than effort. You walk the restored path once, just to feel how different it is with the lanterns back in place. The cones of light guide your steps. Your body relaxes into the rhythm. And you realize the most important part of this small problem wasn't the missing lanterns. It was how nothing in you escalated. You didn't invent drama. You didn't scold the wind, the tide, the rope, or yourself. You simply noticed, listened, and fixed what could be fixed. The lagoon remains misty, indigo, and quietly alive. The huts hold their warm lantern glows. The walkway holds steady under your feet. And as you move forward, the night resumes its gentle order, as if it never left, only paused long enough to teach you that calm is something you can practice. You continue along the restored stretch of plankway, and the world immediately feels less like a careful balancing act and more like a slow invitation again. The lanterns sit higher and steadier now, their turmeric yellow cones of light falling exactly where they should, on boards, on rails, on the gentle curve of water, while leaving the sky respectfully dark. The rope line holds without complaint. The mist, still present, turns each halo into something softer, as if the lagoon is deliberately blurring anything sharp. You follow the glow toward a wider platform ahead, where the huts gather in a loose ring and the plankways converge like quiet pathways into a shared living room. Shell gold accents shimmer along the rail edges, not flashy, just enough to make the place feel cared for. You step onto the platform and feel it lift and settle with the tide. A familiar motion now, something your body trusts without negotiation. The scent arrives before the scene fully resolves. Coconut sweetness, toasted sugar, and a faint herbal note that cuts through the richness like a clean breath. Then you see it. Low tables arranged on woven mats. Reed baskets set out in neat clusters. Brass oil lamps shaded and placed carefully so their light stays downward, warm and intimate. The whole platform glows with indigo shadows and russet wood, turmeric highlights, and teal-green touches in the matte patterns and shutter slats. It looks like the lagoon has staged a celebration, but in the same understated way it does everything. No confetti, no fuss, just a gentle shift into shared. The locals move around you like calm hosts, the kind who don't greet you with a huge performance because they assume you're tired and deserve peace. Hands lift trays, palm leaves unfold, coconut sweets appear in rows, golden pieces dusted with white, some shaped into small discs, some into soft squares, each one slightly unique in that reassuring handmade way. Your reed basket suddenly feels less like something you're carrying and more like your small contribution to the night's order. You set your basket down on a teal and russet mat, and the sweets inside settle with a soft whisper. You don't announce what you did, saving caramel, leveling trays, tightening knots, because this place doesn't require a resume for participation. The gesture is enough. The basket is placed among the others, palm leaves overlapping like protective hands, and the coconut aroma thickens into something that feels almost tangible, like a warm scarf around your neck. The platform holds a quiet kind of activity. Someone sprinkles extra grated coconut over a tray, creating a dusting like pale snow. Someone brushes a hint of shell gold along the rim of a small bowl, restoring a worn edge with a whisper of shine. Someone arranges a line of empty reed baskets near the rail, ready for later sharing, ready for tomorrow's work. Nothing is rushed. Everything is done at the pace of lantern flames. You drift along the edge of the platform and look out over the lagoon. The surface is darker here, indigo with teal undertones, reflecting lantern halos in long, trembling ribbons. Mist curls low and soft, turning the huts into gentle silhouettes. The stilt posts stand like patient legs holding the whole scene above water. The way good routines hold your life above chaos when you remember to use them. A low hum gathers again beneath the boards, deeper than the shell chimes, steadier than rope taps. It's the lagoon's baseline note, rising and falling with the tide's pressure against wood. You feel it in your ribs, and your breath starts matching it without effort. Inhale, slow pause, exhale, like your body recognizes a lullaby before your mind does. You pick up a coconut sweet from the nearest tray. It's cool and faintly sticky, coconut dust clinging to your fingertips. You bite, and the sweetness blooms, caramel warmth, coconut richness, the faint salt that makes it all feel round rather than sharp. It tastes like the palm grove you just left, like the careful choosing of coconuts, like the slow reduction in the pot, like the moment the mixture almost seized and then softened again when you treated it gently. Your mouth becomes a museum of small memories, and your heart does that quiet thing it does when it feels safe. It stops bracing. Somewhere out in the lagoon, a turtle surfaces. You don't see the shell at first, but you hear the soft puff of breath. Then a ripple widens, catching lantern reflection and breaking it into glittering fragments. The serenade has returned, not as a main event, but as a steady presence woven into everything: water, wood, sweetness, mist. You wander back toward the center of the platform, where the trays sit in neat patterns and the oil lamps cast a warm, downward glow. A bowl of coconut cream is stirred slowly, just enough to keep it smooth. Another bowl holds palm sugar shavings, dark and fragrant, ready for tomorrow's pot. A small heap of coconut husk fibers sits bundled in the corner, a reminder that sweetness is only one branch of the coconut's usefulness, and that nothing here is wasted. Not time, not fiber, not calm. You notice how the celebration doesn't demand constant attention. It's not a loud festival with a schedule you're failing to keep. It's a quiet sweetness gathering, built for tired bodies and minds. You can participate by sitting. You can contribute by simply being gentle. You can take another sweet and let it melt slowly while you stare at lantern reflections and pretend, for once, that tomorrow is not a hungry animal. A breeze moves through and touches the lamps. Flames lean, then straighten. The shaded light stays soft, never harsh. Your earlier repairs, shortening lantern chains, tightening rope lines, feel like they belong here now, not as chores, but as part of the larger intention. Keep the night kind on purpose. You remember the loose plank you wedged, the tray you leveled, the damp wicks you coaxed back to life. Each small act feels like another sweet on the tray, quiet, practical, and meant to be shared. You settle near the rail and let your gaze float. The lagoon holds the huts and their lights, the reflections wobbling gently with each tide lift. Mist thickens and thins. The hum steadies under the boards. The turtles breathe somewhere out in the darkness, their soft exhalations punctuating the night like calm commas. You take one last coconut sweet for now, and you chew slowly. The world tastes warm, salted, and unhurried. The platform feels like a lullaby you can sit inside, and for a moment everything, lantern glow, stilt posts, reed baskets, shells, coconut, aligns into the simplest possible message. You are allowed to rest, and you do not have to earn it by suffering first. You stay a little longer by the rail, letting the platform's hush do what it does best. Soften everything that usually feels sharp. The lantern cones keep their downward kindness. Mist holds the lagoon in a gentle blur. Somewhere out in the indigo, a turtle exhales, and the sound lands like a small stamp of approval on your chest. Eventually, your body gives you the quiet signal that it's time to move. Not because you're being pushed out, but because even the sweetest pause becomes heavy if you cling too tightly. You lift your woven reed basket, now lighter than before, and feel the coconut sweets settle against palm leaves with a warm, papery whisper. You step off the shared platform and onto the plankway for one last loop, the kind you take when you want to leave a place properly, with your senses awake enough to store it. The walkway guides you between huts that hover above water like anchored thoughts. Rusted posts rise from the lagoon, darkened by damp, their lower edges polished smooth by tides that never stop practicing. Teal shutters sit half-drawn, breathing with the breeze. Woven palm roofs carry a faint sheen where mist has gathered, and shell gold accents blink when lantern light slides past. Never loud, always precise. You walk at the pace you've learned here, slow enough to hear the boards reply. Each step makes a soft creak, then silence. Rope lines hum when the breeze presses them, and you notice how the knots sit tidy, tails tucked away so nothing flaps and startles the night. You remember tightening that loosened rail rope on the long bridge, and you feel a small, private satisfaction that the line still holds straight. A lantern sways gently as you pass, and you notice the chain loop you added to shorten its swing. The flame leans and straightens inside its hood, steady and modest. The light falls in a calm oval onto the boards, leaving the sky dark above. You remember the lanterns that went wandering on the tide, their little conspiracy against convenience, and you almost laugh under your breath. The lagoon didn't steal, it simply moved. You didn't chase with panic, you followed with listening. The plankway brings you past the hut that held the slow pot and the warm interior glow. The air still carries a faint caramel note, as if palm sugar and coconut milk have soaked into the wood. You remember the moment the mixture tightened too fast, sweetness turning sharp at the edge, and how a little warm coconut milk loosened it back into silk. It's difficult not to recognize yourself in that pot. The way you can seize when life turns the heat up, and the way you soften again when you give yourself time and warmth. You let the thought pass without turning it into a rule. Mist thickens as you near the low watching decks. Lantern halos turn softer, like turmeric smudged across indigo parchment. The water holds the sky in a trembling mirror, broken by slow rings where something surfaces and sinks again. You hear the soft puff of a turtle's breath, closer than you expect, followed by the tiniest click of beak against water. The serenade is quieter now, not because it has ended, but because it no longer needs to prove itself. It simply continues, patient as tide. You pause at the edge of a deck and listen the way the shell spiral platform taught you. Close sounds, water brushing wood, rope tapping, tap, pause, tap, mat fibers whispering when you shift the basket. Far sounds, palms sighing, a shy clink of shells under an eave, the low hum deepening when a swell slides through the posts. Your own breath moves under it all, longer than it was when you arrived, finally willing to match the lagoon's pace without a fight. Then you angle inland toward the hidden palm grove, not to enter, just to pass close enough to catch its clean green scent. Sap, damp leaf, and the earthy hush of root mounds holding their islands together. You glimpse reed baskets stacked near a post, empty and ready for tomorrow. You glimpse coconut fibers bundled like soft rope waiting to become stability. You remember how the coconut sweet in your basket is the last step of a long chain of attention, and you feel grateful for a place that treats sweetness like a craft, not a shortcut. You continue your loop back toward the first plankway you stepped onto tonight. The huts space out again and the lagoon opens wider. The sky shows more stars between drifting clouds. Reflections shimmer on the water in long, trembling lines. Your reed basket feels familiar now, not as a prop, but as a companion. Woven, practical, slightly frayed at the rim, like anything that's been used with care. You reach the junction platform where 3 plankways meet, the one with the low bench and the shell spiral bowl. The shells still sit in their loose spiral, catching lantern light in brief shell gold winks. You touch the rail lightly as you pass, feeling the smoothness where countless hands have rested. You pause just long enough to acknowledge the place, as if the lagoon deserves to be seen one more time with your full attention. When you step forward again, the plankway carries you toward the edge of the stilt hut world. The night does not shove you out. It lets you go the way it welcomed you. Quietly, steadily, without demanding anything in return. You keep moving, coconut sweetness and turtle hush tucked into your senses like keepsakes, ready to travel with you into the next breath, the next hour, the next sleep. You reach the outermost plankway where the lagoon's stilt hut world loosens its grip, and for a moment you stand still, pretending you're only checking your footing and not negotiating with that stubborn part of you that wants to cling to calm like it's a rare coupon. The lanterns behind you glow in shaded turmeric cones, steady again after their brief midnight swim, and the indigo water holds them in trembling ribbons that stretch and break with each slow swell. Your woven reed basket feels lighter now, not because it has emptied, but because you've stopped carrying it like a responsibility. A few coconut sweets remain, nestled in palm leaves, their warm caramel scent faint in the cooler air. You step toward the final platform, a simple landing where the boards meet a path that disappears into palms and mist. This is where a last worry usually tries to ambush you. Your mind, always eager to be helpful, offers the classic. What if you forget this feeling the second you leave? What if tomorrow comes back with its loud boots and steals the quiet? What if you wake up and the calm turns out to have been a temporary glitch? You almost smile, because even your anxiety is predictable when it's tired. The lagoon doesn't answer in words because it has better methods. It answers through sensation. A swell slides through the posts and deepens the low hum under your feet. One long note that arrives, holds, and eases away. Rope taps a post. Tap, pause, tap. Exactly as it has all night. A lantern flame leans, then straightens, unbothered. Out over the water, a turtle exhales. A soft puff that could be mistaken for wind if you weren't listening properly. The serenade is still here. It isn't trapped in a place. It's carried in a rhythm. You take one coconut sweet from the basket and bite slowly, letting the familiar flavors anchor you. Toasted coconut, palm sugar warmth, the faint salt that rounds everything into softness. You remember the moment the caramel nearly seized, and how warm coconut milk and steady stirring brought it back. You remember the tray that tried to tilt, and how a folded strip of woven matting made the table behave. You remember the loose plank that stopped complaining once a wedge and a tidy knot gave it support. None of it required heroics, only attention. And suddenly the worry has nowhere to stand. Because you don't keep calm by gripping it, you keep it by practicing it. Lower the heat, steady the base, fix the small thing before it grows teeth. Listen for the hum instead of listening for disaster. You rest your palm on the railing one last time. The wood is cool and smooth where countless hands have paused. Mist brushes your face lightly, as if the lagoon is signing the evening for you in touch rather than sound. You look back and let the scene settle into you without trying to capture it. The huts hover above the lagoon like patient thoughts, anchored, supported, allowed to sway. Russet posts stand steady in indigo water. Teal shutters breathe with the breeze. Shell gold glints blink on rails and lamp hoods, brief as eyelash flickers. A small detail catches your eye near the junction platform. The shallow bowl of shells arranged in a loose spiral, still catching stray light and returning it in tiny flashes. You remember sitting beside it, learning to listen close and far until your own thoughts lowered their voices. You don't need to carry a shell away as proof. You carry the habit instead. Listen, then listen again, and let the world be quieter than your worry. You shift your weight and step off the last board. The texture changes beneath your feet, from smooth plank to packed earth, from salt-damp wood to root-threaded ground. Palms rise around you, and the lagoon's scent follows. Warm oil lamp smoke, coconut sweetness, clean water. The hum thins, but it doesn't vanish. It becomes internal, a note you can find again by slowing down. A short path climbs to a slightly higher ridge where you can still see the lagoon between fronds. From here, the lanterns are smaller, and the water is darker, but the reflections still shimmer like long breaths. You hold the reed basket in both hands for a moment, not as luggage, but as a reminder that calm can live in simple containers. You take one last coconut sweet for tonight and let it rest on your tongue until it softens, until sweetness becomes less like a spike and more like a warm, steady line. Then you turn away, not because you must, but because leaving is part of the lullaby too. You carry the turtle serenades hush in your ribs, the lantern glows steadiness in your eyes, and the lagoon's simple rule in your breath. Slow, steady, kind. And when tomorrow tries to stomp in with its loud boots, you already know what to do. You lower the heat, you steady the bass, and you listen for the hum. The ridge settles behind you, and the lagoon becomes a softer picture in the corner of your mind. You keep walking, but it feels more like drifting than traveling, because the night has already slowed the machinery inside you. Each breath comes deeper and quieter, as if it remembers the turtles and decides to imitate their calm instead of your usual hurried thinking. Even now, you can feel the gentle logic you learned there. When something warms too fast, you lower the heat. When something wobbles, you steady the base. When light swings wildly, you shorten the chain. When your mind starts inventing storms, you listen for the hum underneath it all, and you let that steady note guide you back towards stillness. Picture the huts again. Russet posts rising from indigo water, teal shutters breathing with the breeze, shell gold glints blinking and fading. Picture the reed basket, palm leaves folded over coconut sweets, warmth and salt and toasted sugar lingering like a small blessing. Picture the watching deck and the slow rings on the surface, each turtle breath a soft punctuation mark that asks nothing from you except presence. Now let the pictures blur. Let the edges soften. Let the lantern halos dim until they are only a warm idea. Let the water smooth itself, the ripples flattening into quiet. Let your shoulders melt down your back. Let your jaw unclench. Let your eyelids grow weighty, as if sleep is doing its job and closing the day with gentle hands. You don't have to hold the lagoon in memory. It is enough to carry the rhythm. Slow, steady, kind. One more inhale, one more exhale, and you feel yourself floating toward rest, as if the tide is lifting you onto a shore, and everything that can wait is already waiting. End of story. Sweet dreams.